Ladies and gentlemen, there comes a time in every life when the impossible looks you in the eye and dares you to try. And that's exactly the moment you must act as if nothing is impossible with God. See, we're not talking about reckless confidence, we're talking about faith-fueled action. We're talking about believing that with divine partnership, you don't walk into the storm alone, you walk with purpose, with power, and with peace. Now, let me remind you, faith is not denial. It doesn't ignore the mountain, it climbs it. Faith doesn't pretend there's no storm, it builds a boat. You see, acting as if nothing is impossible with God is about stepping forward before the path is clear, because you trust who's lighting the way. Your job isn't to move heaven. Your job is to move your feet, knowing that heaven is already on your side. Let me give you a few truths to take with you, like seeds in your pocket. Plant them, water them, and watch what grows. Faith is not a feeling, it's a decision. Too often, we wait for a certain emotion to hit us before we move forward. We say things like, "I'll take the step when I feel more confident," or "I'll believe when I feel stronger inside." But if we're honest, feelings are unreliable. They change with the weather, with the news, with one unexpected phone call. Feelings are up one moment and down the next. You can't build a consistent life on a foundation that wobbles every few hours. Faith, on the other hand, is something stronger. It is a conscious decision to trust beyond what you see, beyond what you feel, and beyond what your circumstances are telling you. Deciding to have faith is not about ignoring reality. It's about choosing which reality you will let define your next move. One reality is the one in front of your eyes. Maybe the numbers don't look good, the situation seems hopeless, or the dream feels too far gone. But there is another reality, the one God promises, the one that says all things are possible, the one that says you are never alone and that your steps are ordered, even when you don't see the full staircase. Faith chooses to believe that. It doesn't mean you don't feel fear. It means you refuse to obey it. It doesn't mean the doubt disappears. It means you've decided to trust anyway. There will be mornings when you wake up and don't feel brave. There will be moments where everything in your body wants to quit. That's where the decision of faith kicks in. That's where you stand firm not because it feels good, but because you made a choice. Faith is saying, I don't need all the answers. I don't need to feel 100%. I've decided to trust God and I'm moving forward. That kind of faith builds resilience. It develops character. It teaches you how to walk through fire and come out refined instead of burned. Every great story in history, every person who changed the world or overcame the odds, made a decision long before the outcome was visible. They moved before they were certain. They acted while still afraid. They chose to believe when the evidence said otherwise. And what empowered them? Not perfect conditions, not positive vibes, a decision to believe that something greater was at work. A decision to act on a promise instead of an emotion. If you wait for the feeling, you'll often wait forever. But if you decide today, right now, to walk by faith, you'll discover strength you didn't know you had. You'll watch fear lose its grip. You'll see the impossible start to look possible. Because faith doesn't start with a sign. It starts with a step. And every step you take in faith builds a foundation that feelings can never shake. Don't wait for the path to be easy. Start walking and trust it will be possible. This is the kind of mindset that separates those who move forward in life from those who stay stuck, paralyzed by the illusion that everything has to line up before they begin. But the truth is, if you're waiting for all the lights to turn green before you leave the driveway, you'll never go anywhere. Life, especially life with God, doesn't work that way. The path rarely looks smooth at the start. In fact, it often looks uncertain, unpredictable, and at times completely unworkable. But faith doesn't ask for the path to be easy. It asks you to trust that as you move, the way will unfold. There's a strange thing that happens when you start walking. Even if the road looks foggy, even if you can't see 10 steps ahead, the very act of moving forward causes things to shift. You gain perspective. Doors begin to open that weren't visible from where you were standing. You meet people, discover opportunities, and find solutions that never would have shown up had you stayed frozen in fear or waiting for perfect clarity. It's in motion that progress happens. But most people never take the first step because they've convinced themselves that the path must be proven before it's pursued. This kind of thinking keeps people stuck for years. They wait until they feel ready. They wait for a sign, for approval, for the fear to go away. But that's not how breakthrough works. The miracles don't happen before the step. They follow the step. Think about every story of faith and courage. The waters didn't part until someone stepped into them. The walls didn't fall until someone marched around them. The manna didn't fall until the people journeyed into the wilderness. In other words, the provision comes when the movement begins, not before. There will be resistance. There will be doubt, but neither of those are signs to stop. They're signs that you're in the right place, the stretching place, the growing place. And it's in that place, when your legs are trembling but still walking, that faith is built and trust is tested. You learn that ease isn't the goal, obedience is. You discover that success isn't defined by the comfort of the journey, but by the courage to begin it. So don't wait for perfect conditions. Don't wait until you feel brave or qualified or certain. The path doesn't have to be clear for you to take the next step. All you need is enough faith to move just one step. That's where momentum begins. That's where possibility enters the story. Start walking, even when it's uncomfortable, even when it's slow. Because once you do, you'll realize that it's not the path that makes the journey possible. It's the decision to walk it, trusting that God will make a way where there was none before. God won't do your part, and you can't do His. That truth, though simple, is one of the most powerful lessons a person can learn in their walk of faith. It puts responsibility in its rightful place. Too often people sit back and wait for God to do everything to open the door, deliver the opportunity, write the vision, take the step, make the call, change the habit, all while they do nothing. But faith doesn't mean inactivity. Faith is not sitting on the couch expecting divine intervention without any personal movement. Faith is partnership. It's you doing what you can do, while trusting God to do what only He can. There's a divine line between the possible and the impossible. Your job is to do the possible, the showing up, the effort, the planning, the learning, the praying, the forgiving, the staying disciplined, the choosing integrity, the making progress one step at a time. God's part is the impossible, the outcome, the breakthrough, the supernatural favor, the connections, the timing, the open doors you never could have forced or predicted. You can't swap roles. You can't ask God to handle your laziness or expect Him to bless what you never started. At the same time, you can't carry the weight of things that only He can control. If you try to do God's part, you'll end up exhausted and anxious. You'll try to manipulate results, force people to change, predict every twist and turn, and worry endlessly about what's out of your hands. That's not faith, that's fear in disguise. On the flip side, if you expect God to do your part, you'll remain stuck. You'll have dreams but no direction, hopes but no habits, promises but no progress. God doesn't bless empty wishes. He blesses faithful work. He blesses obedience. He blesses those who take what's in their hands and offer it with diligence and trust. Think of the farmer. He can't make it rain. He can't control the sun, but he can till the ground, plant the seed, water the soil, and tend the field. He does his part, and then he waits, not passively, but expectantly, trusting that God will do what he cannot. It's the same with your life. You might not be able to fix everything, but you can choose your attitude. You might not see the finish line, but you can take the next step. You might not have the full plan, but you can start with what you know now. God won't write your resume, but he can put it in the right hands. He won't study for your exam, but he can give you peace and clarity as you prepare. He won't repair every relationship for you, but he will give you the grace to speak with humility and truth. So you show up, you work, you believe, you give it your best, and then you let go of the results. That's the divine rhythm, your effort and God's power working together. It's not either slash or it's both, but never forget, God won't do your part and you can't do his. Impossible is not a wall, it's a test. It's not there to stop you. It's there to prove you. Life has a way of placing obstacles in front of every person who dares to believe in something greater, something better, something that hasn't been done yet. And when you encounter something that feels too big, too complicated, or too far out of reach, the natural instinct is to see it as a barrier, a sign that it's not meant to be. But what if that impossible thing wasn't meant to block you, but to stretch you? What if it was placed in your path, not to defeat you, but to develop you? Every great achievement in history once lived in the realm of the impossible. Every invention, every revolution, every act of faith or courage or transformation had a moment where the people involved could have said, "This can't be done." But the people who changed the world were the ones who saw impossible as a test, a question that asked, how badly do you want this? How much are you willing to grow? How far will you trust? Impossible reveals something about you. It shows what you believe, what you value, and whether you're willing to move even when nothing guarantees success. The truth is, impossible is only impossible until someone does it. And most of the time, the people who break through weren't the strongest or smartest. They were simply the ones who refused to give up. They were willing to keep trying, to learn from failure, to walk by faith even when they couldn't see the full picture. They understood that the challenge in front of them wasn't a denial. It was an invitation. It was an invitation to become more than they were, to dig deeper, believe harder, and lean not on their own understanding, but on a strength beyond themselves. When you encounter the impossible, your mindset matters more than your skill set. You don't have to know everything to start. You don't have to have all the answers to take the first step. What you do need is a decision to respond with faith rather than fear, with perseverance rather than panic. Impossible tests your vision. It forces you to ask yourself whether you really believe what you say you believe. It strips away comfort and exposes the depth of your commitment. And remember, just because something is hard doesn't mean it's not right. Just because the road is uphill doesn't mean you're going the wrong way. Many people give up at the first sign of resistance, not realizing that resistance is the very proof that they're moving towards something meaningful. So when you see impossible, don't retreat, don't freeze, don't surrender. Recognize it for what it is, not a wall to stop you, but a test to shape you. A test to see if you'll keep walking when the road gets steep, if you'll keep believing when the odds are against you, and if you'll keep showing up when everything inside you wants to quit. When you act with faith, you tap into divine momentum. There's something powerful that happens the moment you stop waiting for the stars to align and start moving with trust. Faith isn't passive. It's not just hoping things work out while you do nothing. Faith is movement. It's action backed by belief. It's stepping into uncertainty with confidence, not because everything makes sense, but because you trust that God is already ahead of you, making a way where there is no way. And once you begin to move with that kind of faith, you set something in motion that is greater than anything you can orchestrate on your own. Momentum is built on motion. It doesn't come from thinking, wishing, or planning alone. It comes from action. One small step of faith can unlock a chain reaction of opportunity, strength, and favor that you didn't see coming. Divine momentum begins when you move not based on fear, not based on what you lack, but based on the quiet, steady conviction that God is working in and through you. He meets movement with miracles. He meets obedience with openings. The moment you take a step, no matter how small, you begin to feel that shift, the subtle but undeniable push from something greater than yourself. And that's the beauty of it. You don't have to generate all the strength on your own. You don't have to see the whole staircase to climb the first step. When you act with faith, work with adjustments where you say, buck your fiveteaches use and two sumpfus t, you, and he multiplies it. You stretch out your hand, and he parts the sea. You show up with the little you have, and he breathes life into it. The supernatural meets the natural. What was stuck begins to move. What was closed begins to open. What was impossible begins to unfold. That's divine momentum. This isn't about speed. It's not about doing more for the sake of doing more. Divine momentum is about alignment. It's about being in step with God's timing, trusting His plan over your own, and letting each act of obedience, no matter how small, build upon the last. And just like a river gains force as it flows, your faith gains power the more you walk in it. Clarity starts to increase. Confidence begins to rise. You don't need to see the finish line to feel the energy of progress. You just need to keep moving in the direction you're called, even when the path is still forming beneath your feet. And in that process, doubt starts to lose its grip. Fear begins to shrink. You stop relying on your own strength because you begin to recognize the presence of something bigger propelling you forward. That's what happens when faith becomes action. It taps into heaven's current. It lifts you out of neutral and into momentum that doesn't come from striving, but from trusting. Faith, in motion, carries a power that no obstacle can withstand, and once it starts flowing, it becomes harder to stop than it ever was to start. Life today, like God, is already working behind the scenes because He is. Just because you can't see the full picture doesn't mean the picture isn't being painted. Life can feel frustrating when progress isn't visible, when prayers seem unanswered, and when change moves slower than expected. But faith isn't about seeing the evidence first. It's about living like the evidence is already being formed beyond what your eyes can perceive. God doesn't operate on our deadlines or according to our comfort zones. He works in layers, in seasons, and in silence. Often, the most significant movement is happening in moments that feel still. When you plant a seed, you don't see growth immediately. Days pass with no sign of life, but beneath the surface, something is stirring. Roots are forming, systems are developing, and life is preparing to break through. That's how God often works. Behind the scenes, in places you can't see, He is aligning situations, softening hearts, opening doors, and clearing obstacles that would have blocked your way had you arrived too early. When you live as if God is already at work, you stop pacing and start trusting. You move forward with peace instead of pressure. You make decisions not out of desperation, but with calm confidence that the unseen hand of God is moving even when nothing appears to be changing. This kind of faith changes how you show up in everyday life. You speak with more hope. You wait with more patience. You give with more joy. You live with more courage because you're no longer operating out of scarcity or fear. You're living from a place of expectation. And when you live in expectation, your posture changes. You no longer walk around like someone waiting to be rescued. You walk like someone who knows that deliverance is already on the way. It's not about pretending everything is perfect. It's about believing that even in the imperfection, God is active. He's weaving things together, redeeming broken pieces, and turning what the enemy meant for harm into something good. When Joseph sat in a prison cell, it didn't look like anything was happening, but God was working. When David was in the fields tending sheep, it looked like he was forgotten. But God was preparing him for kingship. When Ruth gleaned leftovers in the fields, she probably felt like her life was over. But God was writing a legacy that would outlive her by generations. The same is true for you. What feels quiet or delayed isn't empty. It's sacred. It's the in-between where God is assembling what you don't yet have the capacity to carry. So don't lose heart just because you can't see the full plan. Live today like heaven is already involved in your tomorrow. Make the call, take the step, trust the timing. Celebrate small wins, and carry yourself like someone whose breakthrough isn't a question of if, only a matter of when. Because God is always working, even when you can't see it, especially then.